Light the lamp with BetMGM, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Sign up and use bonus code CHAMPION200 when you bet $10 on any NHL team to win. If any team scores a goal in any game, you'll win $200 in free bets. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Virginia only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire in 7 days from issuance. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-888-532-3500.
Blue Wire.
First pick in the 1991 NBA draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Larry Johnson from University.
I'm not supposed to be here, man. A lot of people from where I'm from, don't make it.
Charlotte, we're back.
Welcome back to another Buzz Beat. This is Richie, and please make sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to our episodes. Also, check out buzzbeat.substack.com for information about BuzzBeat Plus, where you can get ad-free episodes, among other perks. On today's episode, I'll be joined by Brian and Lee as we will chat about the game that just went final here between the Hornets and the 76ers, 131-113. Another loss in the books for the Hornets, as well as some interesting and fun questions from our listeners. Brian, Lee, how's it going, guys?
I'm doing well. I did not have to guard Joel Embiid tonight, so I think because of that, I'm doing just fine. Glad to be here with you guys.
Yeah, I don't think anyone guarded Joel Embiid.
Yeah. Did you like the part of the fourth quarter where Nick Richards was in the game struggling against Embiid and Steve Clifford called a timeout and Del Curry said, that's to get Mason Plumlee back in to guard Joel Embiid. And it was like, yeah, I mean, that's technically true, but in actuality, I don't think it worked quite as much as the head coach of the Hornets was hoping.
Lee, how's it going for you?
Hey, it's good, man. I mean, I think we're starting to settle in and get nice and routine on these post-game losses. 7-20 now for anybody who's keeping count at home.
7-20. Yes. So we are doing our best for these post-game losses, and we'll go ahead and get into this game versus Philly. The first go-around against the 76ers, the team looked a whole lot different because I don't think they played with Embiid or Harden back in Charlotte.
Correct.
And I think Hornets were able to get the win, if I'm not mistaken. I cannot remember what the
we did. We won that game.
Oh, very good. Okay. But obviously Embiid was a big factor in this game, and he's come back from injury. I don't know, he had like a 4-game stretch where he sat out, and he's been certainly a big factor tonight. And both teams started off slow from the offensive end of the court before it started to kind of pick up a little bit in those final 4 to 5 minutes of the first quarter. The team, Charlotte, that is, really turned defense into offense, got their hands into some passing lanes. And that is where they are going to be their best, is just, getting buckets in transition. And that's where they're going to have to take advantage because they do have an inability to score in the half court. In terms of player performances that stood out to me, I mean, there weren't a ton that were noteworthy. Jalen McDaniels and Kelly Oubre were two that, were a little bit noteworthy. I wouldn't necessarily say they had awesome games tonight. I wouldn't think anyone really did per se, but I think Jalen McDaniels was probably one of the biggest recipients of the transition offense. He had a couple of buckets off steals early on in the game, and but he also had a couple of tough shots against a good defense from the 76ers, which is something they're obviously known for. He had a turnaround fading shot in this first quarter, and then he had a driving layup in the second quarter where it seemed like Philly was really just shutting down any kind of driving lanes and walling off the paint in that second quarter. And I think when they got things settled, Philly, that is, on the defensive side of the court, it just was a stretch of defense where Charlotte was struggling to get into a rhythm. And they're not shooting the ball well from behind the arc. I think Rozier did a little bit better tonight, but other than that, they're just not a team that can score from behind the arc. So they need tough shot makers. Not that Jalen McDaniels is one, but we will take anything we can get in the half court because that's where the Hornets are struggling right now. So I just wanted to start off with Jalen McDaniels out of anyone in terms of this game. But Kelly Oubre had 29 points. Terry Rozier had 29 points. And McDaniels, who I just mentioned, had 15.
Yeah, and I think McDaniels was even an inch away from having an even nicer box score. He missed a layup that he probably should have hit. And then he had another possession where once Charlotte started trapping Harden and Embiid pick and roll pretty aggressively late in the fourth quarter, as they were desperately trying to do anything to make it slightly more difficult against that action. McDaniels had a nice steal. I guess I'm assuming it got recorded as a steal, and could have had a kind of an open floor finish on it, and then lost his handle and ball went back to Philly. But I agree, Richie. I thought he played well tonight. Only 12, 13 minutes in this game for Kai Jones, but I thought every possession that he was, involved or semi-involved in offensively, he played hard tonight, as he seems to be doing the last few weeks. A couple of nice slashing possessions and put back finishes for Kai. So do want to ring that bell. I think Kai is continuing to show flashes. I still don't think there's much of a plan for how to use him in the half court. And I will continue to ring that bell that I'd like to see some more stuff schemed up for him, because there are some possessions where when they run double screen action, double high, double drag, whatever, and Kai's at the 4 and he pops, well, then all of a sudden the possession can just almost not necessarily die there, but whatever action you just ran, whatever advantage could have been created goes nowhere, because he's not going to catch and shoot. And, he's also maybe not the quickest with the decision making with the basketball at times. So again, I'd still like for there to be some better ideas to get that guy either cutting or diving downhill or coming off of handoffs or screens or Maggette stampede cut type stuff to get him going downhill out of the corner. I would like to see that. So I'll shout out Kai for a handful, half dozen, I thought pretty nice offensive possessions in this game, just kind of making stuff happen with his athleticism.
Yeah, just a couple notes. I think we want to spend more time on some good listener questions than we do this throttling from Joel Embiid that we received. Just a couple little observations. Rozier, he's 14 of 29 from 3 over his last 4 games. Terry's finally starting to kind of find his footing as a shooter that we've got accustomed to in his time in Charlotte. So that's certainly something to watch. Just like a little lineup note, Bryce McGowens is the first guy off the bench tonight. Obviously, Dennis Smith Jr. is still unavailable. Cody Martin's still unavailable. But I believe that was the first time that McGowens was kind of Steve Clifford's first selection off the bench for a game. So that to me just kind of illustrates that McGowens is clearly, obviously on one hand, they just need to get him out there for developmental minutes and see what he looks like. But on another hand, I think there's a small part of that Steve Clifford is liking what he sees and starting to trust him a little bit more and more. Brian already hit on this pretty well, so I won't expand upon it, but just that the Richards and Kai Jones minutes are fun. I'm not sure that they're particularly effective, and obviously they were both just they're playing hard, they're both athletic, they're long, they try, but they were just completely and utterly outclassed tonight, obviously. And then the only other little note I had was just kind of a super blah game from PJ Washington, as I think it was the Clippers game when Kawhi hit the game winner that me and Richie were really kind of singing PJ's praises after the game, because it was one of those games where you just see so much offensive versatility and defensive usefulness from PJ Washington. The shooting, it just seems like it's still it's still inconsistent. It's still very up and down with PJ. But to be fair, that should probably be expected when most of your on-ball playmaking is in street clothes. I think he maybe even a little bit more than others is affected negatively by that. So those were just 4 kind of little quick notes and observations I had about the game tonight.
He's just struggling so much in the mid-range right now, PJ, shooting the basketball. So when he has nights like this when the 3-ball doesn't go down, he's 0-4, it can just make the shooting lines look really, really bad, And yeah, I think this has been the whole season's been tough at times for PJ from an efficiency standpoint. But this does seem to be a stretch where outside of the Clippers game where he's just kind of going through a pretty real rough patch. I've not looked at the December, splits or anything like that, but this does not seem to be an overly strong stretch for PJ. And who knows, if trade rumors start creeping in a little bit more, maybe that type of stuff does go. Maybe it has some impact on his play or whatever, but really I think it has a lot to do with the defense has been okay. The passing has been okay, but the individual offense, especially the mid-range, has really struggled. And so on games like this, when the 3 isn't there to sort of raise the overall efficiency floor, you can just put up some box scores that shooting wise look pretty brutal.
Yeah, and if you remember, Lee, when we recorded after that game against the Clippers, I think his previous game, he had an awful game. I think it was against the Bucks.
It was a goose egg. I think.
Yeah, it was the 0 of 12, 0 of 13 shooting, whatever. I can't remember how many he missed that night, but yeah, it was an 0 for.
So that means he's going to do awesome Wednesday night against the Pistons.
Yes. Yeah, of course.
My prediction. 25 plus points for PJ. Last note that I wanted to make, and we'll get out of here on the game recap and transition over to the questions, is just Kelly Oubre is just so funny to me in the sense that this season is the perfect equation for him in terms of his performance and potentially raising his value around the league. You couple the contract year plus the fact that there's injuries all up and down the roster. This perfect storm has come together for him, and he is taking advantage of getting up every shot that he can. And again, he keeps up his aggression when it comes to getting to the hoop, and that's something that I've been highlighting all year. But just his overall attempts tonight, 23. I would think that would have to be a season high for him. So I'll take a look at that after this recording to see if that's the case, but it's got to be up there. And I think the situation for him is just perfect for the game that he likes to play. So again, Hornets lose 131-113, dropping to 7-20, like Lee mentioned earlier. And the offense in the half court, especially against a good half court defense like just was hard to watch. So
Kelly Oubre, 26.2% usage rate heading into tonight, according to Basketball Reference, averaging over 19 field goal attempts per 36 minutes too. Just insane usage, and he doesn't really turn the ball over. So yeah, he's going to get up a lot of shots.
Yeah, and Richie, just to piggyback, tied for his most field goal attempts this year. The other one was actually the Clippers game from the other night. He took 23 shots in that game as well. Another thing that I hadn't noticed until I just looked, Kelly Oubre scored in double figures every game this season. Does not have a single-digit scoring night this year.
Such a strange season, man. It really is. I do think the opportunity for him to become a possible trade chip, I think it does increase with the way he plays like this. If a team is looking for a guy that can give him some shooting and some scoring and another added spark of rim pressure from the wing. I don't know. I think a couple weeks ago I was sort of down on that as a possibility, like a realistic possibility, and now I'm starting to think that I think the opportunity is expanding and could be something that we'll see what things look like 2 months from now, supposedly, I think, with Kelly.
Hey, it's Kevin Hart with my friend Catherine O'Hara.
'Tis I.
And we're cash backing on our entire holiday gift list with Chase Freedom Unlimited.
We are. How about cologne for Jack?
You know what? That's cash backing, and it's in the air.
Ooh, and I love
this scarf for Barbara. And I love the cash backing. Focus on the giving, Kev. And one more on the list. Somebody named Kev. Kevin! Yes! How do you cash back? Learn more at ChaseFreedom.com. Chase, make more of what's yours.
Restrictions and limitations apply. Cards are issued by JPMorgan Chase Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
Enjoy the on-ice action like never before with BetMGM, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Sign up today using bonus code CAPITAL, and your first wager is risk-free up to $1,000. You'll also have instant access to a variety of parlay selection features, player props, and boosted odds specials. Just download the BetMGM app today or go to BetMGM.com to enter bonus code CAPITAL and place your first wager risk-free up to $1,000. The BetMGM app is the perfect way to experience the excitement of wagering on hockey now in more markets than ever. Take the ice with the king of sportsbooks today. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. Washington, D.C. only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
All right, let's switch it over to some listener questions to end out the pod here. And we have got 3 questions from Cam, and we'll just go one by one here. Cam says, why haven't our lottery picks been playing? Mark, get him ready. Book night. See what you have. And in parentheses, he puts nothing, but maybe someone will offer something. So I agree entirely on the Mark Williams needs to be seeing minutes part of this question going into the season. I think I've predicted him to be seeing consistent minutes by January. I just don't know if that's going to be the case. But from everything I've seen, it looks like he's done very, very well with himself with the Greensboro Swarm. And I fully believe that the biggest reason he is seeing time there is not because of like some kind of needed development, which, obviously any rookie could use, but I think it's more because of the depth and being behind Plumlee and Richards. Like, he's just not going to be able to see minutes. So unless Plumlee is off this team, you might see more of this situation pop up. He's also dealing with the left ankle sprain, and I'm not really sure that really matters for this specific question. I'm not sure he'd actually be seeing court time if he was healthy. And as far as Book goes, he actually played tonight, which was interesting, 2.5 minutes. I think he was being facetious with this question, but I'm not sure that there is really a path right now that he is going to be getting minutes. Like, Bryce McGowan's is just the better option, and I'm not really sure it's a debate right now. And, it must be a confidence thing or something, like all these things that are playing against Book night. But yeah, I would like to see Mark Williams get some minutes, considering, the whole situation with this season being 7-20 right now.
Oh, yeah. So Mark Williams, okay, so Book night is like, you've had tons of opportunity. Like,
right.
Am I ruling out the fact that he would get back into the rotation at some point this year? No, like, definitely not. But it's such a different situation than Mark Williams, who has not gotten an opportunity yet. Book night has had all the opportunities in the world. There are some outlier nights, like the Brooklyn game, where Clifford just played the starters like 40 minutes, all of them, which was just like makes you like throw up in your mouth a little bit. But I think for the most part, he's doing a decent, and somewhat of it is like his hand is forced because of all the injuries. But like, I do think mostly he's doing an okay job with the developmental minutes. He's just not going to sit Plumlee. And maybe a little bit of that is coming down from above, because they might want to trade a guy like Plumlee or a guy like Oubre. But I also just think like it's just not in Clifford's nature. He's not gonna bury Mason Plumlee to play Jones, Richards, and Williams. So I am hopeful that Plumlee can get moved before the deadline, because I think it's most likely the right thing to do from just a business operational standpoint. And I also think it would be the right thing to do to let Mark Williams post-trade deadline start to get, 15 minutes a night and start to see what you have with him. So, I think from Cam's like overarching question is, why aren't our lottery picks playing? One is because of Mason Plumlee, and two, because James Bouknight just isn't an NBA player right now.
Yeah, and certainly part of it is Nick Richards has played well and really solidified his role as the backup center. And there maybe would be more opportunities for Mark if Richards were playing closer to the level of his first 2 seasons in the NBA. With as far as McGowan's usurping Book Night in the rotation, and maybe we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. Perhaps sort of hierarchy in the organization. I mean, we have a ways to go because Book Night still on a second year of a first round pick contract. McGowan's for now still on a 2-way deal, but you could see this coming a month ago. We recorded a pod being again at some point in mid-November, being like when Book Night was still playing, getting his 20 minutes a night, but just being like one of the worst rotation players in the NBA. And you saw what McGowan's was doing in Greensboro, or what he would do when he would get a flash to play late in the game. And again, the writing was on the wall. Bryce was going to jump him in the rotation. You could see it coming. It is frustrating that one of the reasons that at least some people spun this when the Mark Williams pick happened in the 2022 draft, some people said, well, he's the most kind of NBA ready guy that the Hornets could have taken in this range. Jalen Duren's the youngest guy in the NBA, right? The guy they technically drafted at 13 and then routed to Detroit. AJ Griffin, who's also one of the youngest guys in this draft class and in the NBA, he goes 16, the pick right after Mark Williams. He's, of course, now lighting it up for the Hawks, to the surprise of no one who watched him play prior to his time in the NBA. And so it is a little frustrating that that should never be the logic for why you draft a player. Ultimately is, and I'm not saying that's why Charlotte did the selection. Just that's the way some analysts or people talking about the draft viewed that pick or justified that pick. And I think, again, bad logic in my mind. But yeah, it is frustrating that person has played 13 minutes, in the NBA all season. He's been in 3 games. So again, that has to change. And if Plumlee isn't traded, you got to buy him out, because you just got to clear the lane a little bit, because you've got to find actual playing time for Mark Williams this season. It's great that he's doing well in Greensboro and putting up numbers, but he needs some reps against real NBA competition. I don't know what you do with Book Night. I don't know what the answer here is. I have no clue. Lee, you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It's like, on one hand, you think, hey, maybe you could send Book Night down to Greensboro and he could build up his confidence and put up some numbers against G League competition. But if he goes down there and struggles in Greensboro, then what do you do? Once you pull that lever, it's sort of hard to flip it around. And I just don't know where he's at confidence wise. And so maybe you're also worried about that cratering, that type of move, that demotion, for lack of a better term, being viewed as that, even though that is something that could perhaps help James Book Night. But yeah, it is a little disappointing in a season that is just completely slipping away. LaMelo's barely played. That, they've drafted a lot of guys in the first round the last couple of years, and you're really not seeing, we just now, the last 2 to 3 weeks, started seeing Kai Jones play, so it would be nice to see more of those guys. It's at least Mark Williams and more of Kai Jones, and certainly moving on from Plumlee at some point this season would be a very natural way to help that process.
All right, the next question that Cam has was Cliff the worst possible hire for this team? And it's funny, I kind of get what he's getting at here, but I don't know if I've brought this up in Slack or through our text or both, but I'm not really sure I've expressed this on the pod. I thought the messaging with Mitch Kupchak last year in terms of the firing of Borrego and the hiring of the new coach was a little bit confusing and perplexing, and there were some mixed messages. Like, Kupchak was talking about how JB didn't play the rookies, like Book Night and Kai and JT. But then he went on to say that JB did an awesome job with the youth development over the seasons. And then he also stated that last year's goal was to make the playoffs. So which one is it? Like, are you trying to play the young players and play the youth, or are you trying to make the playoffs? So it's so conflicting when you factor that in. And you also got the extension factor that Borrego got prior to his last season. It makes it even more confusing. So I'm not necessarily so mad at the hire of Cliff at all. I mean, he's been dealt a bad hand, and we've seen the injuries and all the off the court issues that he's had to inherit. And what I'm kind of confused at is, where was Mitch wanting to go with this new coach, and what was the new hire that he was looking for? Because of all these conflicting messages, I'm not really sure what he was looking for. So I know that there was rumors out there that Borrego lost the locker room, and that's a valid reason to get rid of a guy. But I think that Clifford is just a coach right now that is just in a place where he is just going to hold it for the next couple of years, and then they're going to find a new guy. Was it the worst possible hire? I would say no. I think Clifford brings the best out of his players. I just think that the hand that he's been dealt right now has been so bad that it's really hard to evaluate anyone. And who knows what Kenny Atkinson would have done with this team. So I don't know really if you can really judge Clifford based off of this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is at least some track record of what Atkinson did at the start of his stint with Brooklyn when they weren't very good, and there was an emphasis on playing fast, running a ton of pick and roll, targeting the rim, shooting a bunch of threes. I mean, they weren't very good early on, and then the big focus was on player development. So there's some pathways to that, but a lot of that depends on personnel, and so you're going to be handicapped or you're going to be capped in certain ways due to whatever your roster looks like. I guess I think there's a chance that what Cam is saying this because it's not even like a knock so much on like, oh, does Steve Clifford, know basketball? Is he like a good coach? It's just, I think some people are wondering if, because Charlotte should so obviously be tanking and playing the younger guys and maybe trying some more creative stuff offensively, that you have a guy like Clifford who's a little more nailed to habits. Like, and that's one of the things that makes him makes him like at times like a very like dependable and solid NBA coach. But as you're looking at this roster that's so clearly should be thinking about getting a top 3 pick in the draft, that having a guy like Clifford that's going to redline the engine, trying to squeeze every point that he can out of it. It's like if this team was like 10% better, they would be, I don't know. It's obvious to say like they would be winning more games, no duh, but it's like they're almost like just bad enough that the stuff that Steve Clifford does to help teams on the margins like isn't enough, But it's like if they were a little bit better, it would get them over this theoretical hump. So I guess in that regard, yeah, like that's why Cliff is sort of like a tough hire for this roster, because I just kind of wish Clifford one day would get to coach a team that's like a ready-made 50-win team. And then we could see like what Steve Clifford can actually do, because the only opportunities he's gotten have been small market franchises where at a certain point the teams have to start rebuilding, and it puts him like in a not great spot too. So I don't think he was the worst. I think there are so many worse options. I mean, Jim Boylan is still out there floating around. Like, you could have done worse. That guy almost broke Wendell Carter Jr., and look what Wendell has turned into for Orlando this season. So yes, definitely could have done worse than Steve Clifford. But I get some of maybe the consternation coming from some parts of the fan base.
Yeah, what was the guy who lasted like half a year in Cleveland with LeBron? Was it David Blatt?
David Blatt, but then there was also John Beeline, who didn't last very long after coming in from Michigan. Yeah, not great.
You could do worse. I mean, different sport, but we all saw what happened with Urban Meyer last year in Jacksonville.
Yeah. I mean, you could have found the Matt Rule of the NBA to come roll into town. It is. I mean, we're recording this on a Sunday. I didn't watch the Panthers game today, but I saw they won, and they're one game out of the division lead, simply because Steve Wilkes is coaching them boys up down in Charlotte.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I'll cede the floor on this one. Let's keep it rolling, Richie.
All righty. The next question, I think we're just going to quickly go through this one. Is Kelly Oubre the best looking guy in the NBA? The answer is yes. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. I will say real quickly, there was someone from when Kelly was playing with Phoenix, someone from Suns Twitter had a tweet saying that Kelly leads the league in RPM. But as opposed to it being real plus minus, the acronym was real pretty man. And I think about that tweet every game I watch Kelly Oubre play, which has been a lot the last 1.5 seasons.
I think the real question is, has Cam inspired a new segment? Like if things get really bad this season, I think we just go all handsome team.
Yes.
And make our selections. I mean, look, Desmond Bane's a very presidential looking guy. You know what I mean? So I think there's some other guy, but yeah, I mean, look, I think we're all adult enough here to admit that Kelly Oubre is a fantastic looking human.
Yeah, he's a handsome dude. It's unquestioned. Like objectively speaking, Kelly Oubre is a handsome dude.
Yeah, we might get to the point, Lee, where we rank the Hornets on attractive.
Perfect.
That's coming in February.
Perfect.
All right.
Yeah, lots to look forward to this season.
These next two questions go hand in hand, so I'm going to read them both back to back here. So Matt S. asks, should Oubre remain a starter once Gordon and LaMelo come back? And then on Twitter at MTStuff12, he asked, if Hayward isn't traded next offseason, should he be coming off the bench next season, both health management and prioritizing the players drafted? So, Lee, I'll let you lead this one off first because I'm probably going to echo both you and Brian's sentiments on this. So I'll let you lead this one off.
I mean, I know this is breaking the cardinal rule for opinion making, but I'm not sure I care. Like in terms of Oubre remaining a start, obviously LaMelo is going to start, so that's kind of a non-starter. And then kind of like dovetailing the Gordon question, we've talked on this podcast quite a few times this season about how if Gordon's available, the Hornets just run him into the ground. I'm not saying you shouldn't be frustrated with Gordon Hayward and his injury history and what he makes, as a player in this organization. Like, I understand all of that, and I get all of that. I also think on the same hand, you can be frustrated at the fact that they seem to completely refuse to have any sort of kind of management system in place with Hayward and his health. So, if he comes back next season, look, if he's available and this team is trying to win, I think he should start. Like Hayward, at the risk of, beating a dead horse, he's still a very effective NBA player when he is in the lineup. And kind of going back to the last question, Steve Clifford thought he was going to be coaching a roster that was a play-in team for the last 2 years. And this roster now is kind of a glorified G League roster. So it's just a completely different situation than we were all expecting, 3-4 months ago. But I guess to get back at the question at hand, should Oubre remain a starter when Gordon and LaMelo come back? Sure. Why not? He's having some of the best kind of numbers of his career. If Hayward isn't traded next offseason, should he come off the bench next season? No. But they should probably figure out a way to get him to play over 45 games in a season at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you. I don't think, however you handle Oubre as a starter, I guess if those guys come back, that's the other thing. Do you think over under, do you think Gordon Hayward plays more than 10 games this season for Charlotte?
Moving forward?
Yeah, this season, on December 11th. Do you think Gordon Hayward, does he play double figure games for Charlotte this year? From here on out? I don't know. Even if he does come back to play, it is just inevitable that he'll get hurt again. And then probably be out again. I don't know the severity of his injury right now. There should be no rush to bring him back. If and when he does come back, the clock starts to tick, starts all over again before he's once again inevitably hurt. But I guess the world does exist that even if LaMelo and Gordon both came back, if PJ Washington is still struggling, maybe you can just slot Oubre in as the de facto 4 or Hayward as the de facto 4. And maybe Kelly has done enough to justify that starting spot. And if you think he's earned it and you think it's good for his confidence or whatever, and you're still maybe trying to shop him before the trade deadline, if this confluence events happens before the deadline, then maybe you do keep that rolling, and you bring PJ off the bench. I'm not advocating for that, to be clear, but I suppose that hypothetical, that scenario is a possibility. Who knows? I mean, maybe PJ Spencer and I talked about this on a pod the other day, but maybe PJ gets dealt. And so that also would potentially clear out added playing time for someone like Kelly Oubre. I mentioned late last season that I thought Hayward coming off the bench would have been interesting, when he returned from injury late in the season. And as Charlotte was sort of finding something playing Bridges and PJ together with a center on the court. But I didn't think that was the long-term thing. It's Gordon's good when he's out there and you're paying him a lot of money. So him as the guy that props up the bench offense, I think it's interesting, but I think it's more interesting than a pinch, and something that you do for a finite amount of time, as opposed to, well, this is going to be the plan going forward with Gordon. But yeah, it is nuts. This is year 3 of the 4-year contract. So I just think next season, assuming he's still on the roster, has the chance to be pretty weird with Hayward and how his role is handled.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see, how the draft goes and, where he fits within all the pieces. But yeah, I think when he gets back, if he gets back healthy, I say just keep Oubre as the starter. And that could be a way to kind of load manage Gordon, is by bringing him off the bench. Because when he does start, he plays a tremendous amount of minutes and it just doesn't stop. So, all right, next question from @NotThatHeat on Twitter. Who is the better fit with LaMelo, Vic or Scoot? Now, I haven't watched these guys as much as you guys have, and I know both of you guys did a pretty extensive pod over the summer on both of these players, so I won't be able to make much of a case here. But for the sake of the question, I'd love for you guys to take out the BPA and just pretend we were asked to pick the better fit between the two. You obviously, you don't do this with the first overall pick, the second overall pick, or the third overall pick, but maybe it's something that you consider later in the first round. But Lee, Brian, can you make the case that Scoot is the better fit next to LaMelo versus Vic?
No, I cannot make that case, but on the same token, I think Scoot is a better fit with LaMelo than might meets the eye, if that makes sense. You might have this knee-jerk reaction to say, oh, Scoot's not, a big-time shooter, so maybe the spacing doesn't work. But and I think me and Brian actually talked about this, precisely about this on the Scoot pod, was how well he does fit with LaMelo because of the potential for point of attack defense, the dynamic playmaking, and, oh, by the way, LaMelo Ball's a really good shooter. So, LaMelo will be just fine now with this. He was ahead of the schedule as a shooter from day one in the NBA, and that's only continued. So I think Scoot is an incredible fit with LaMelo, but I don't think I could bring myself, even in a Steelman way, really, to say that he would be a better fit than Wemby, because we all know about, LaMelo has very few flaws, but one of them is point of attack defense, and Wembanyama just erases defensive flaws and structural defensive mistakes at and around the rim at a level that I think is going to be shocking to people who are even familiar with him when he enters into the NBA. You can easily reference the game against Chet Holmgren he had 2 summers ago, where Chet had some moments because Chet's an awesome player, but Wemby was just better and erased Chet at the rim several times, and he's going to do that in the NBA from day one, he's going to do that. So that, along with like pick and roll lob partner, transition, even pick and pop stuff with Wemby, it's honestly like I can't even let myself pretend that is a possibility, because it would be so incredibly exciting to have those two pieces on this in this franchise. So I'm not letting myself believe it. BG?
Is Wembanyama like ball dominant on the offensive side of the court? Not that this is really a concern. Like,
He's with his current roster in France right now at Met 92. Like, one of the reasons why he took this opportunity there was so he could play with the ball more. And so I think that's been very good for his development. Like, you see him initiate offense a lot. You see him isolate a lot. You see him pick and pop and then catch the ball. And then if he doesn't shoot, flow into some self-creation effort. So yeah, he's playing on the ball a lot right now. But I think those kinds of reps are really valuable for him to get before he comes to the NBA. And it's cool to see him sort of exploring the space a little bit in terms of like what he can do. But I
would just say, Richie, like, if you're trying to think of envisioning what he might look like on an NBA floor from like a ball dominant standpoint, and it's not a perfect analog, but I would kind of think of Anthony Davis a little bit in terms of like the way he's used. So I don't think he's going to like demand usage a whole lot, although the crazy thing about his upside is that one day he might be like self-creating in isolation off the dribble with step back jumpers.
Yeah. There could be like, Giannis type kind of half-court creation efforts for him. He's an insane finisher too. I mean, he's going to get stronger, but he already is an incredible finisher at and around the basket. Lee mentioned the defense, his ground coverage, the rim protection is completely insane. And like, the NBA is like one of the like archetype dynamic duos that the league is built on is awesome ball handling guard and a talented big guy, right? Like that is just like one of the like archetypal duos that the league, Shaq and Kobe. We just saw James Harden and Joel Embiid, right? Like these are the kind of guys like teams build very successful, winning championship caliber rosters around that archetype. Not saying that's what LaMelo and Wembanyama would be if the stars were to align, but so the fit with them is so good. But and I also think Wembanyama's pick and pop game, LaMelo's pick and pop passing is so good, and I actually think that's something that PJ is missing a lot this season as well, where he was one of the best pick and pop shooters in the league last season, albeit playing lots of time at center. But the thing with Scoot is to remember is that one, Scoot moves well without the ball in the half court. Like he is a good cutter, and I do buy the shot, like the spot shot for him long term. What I would also say is, as we've discussed plenty of times throughout LaMelo's tenure, as incredible as he is, he's not like an instant blur and therefore like an instant source of rim pressure, which Scoot Henderson is. Like he is just like natural, easy advantage creation every time in the half court with a screen or even without a screen. And then all of a sudden you could let LaMelo, again, I think there might be some friction, and you'd have to figure it out. And again, I think there would be some natural tension, but if you could get LaMelo to sort of like buy into a role that looked maybe a little bit more like his rookie year, where he's sharing playmaking duties more with guys like Devontae or Gordon Hayward, etc., then it could really work, because LaMelo's ability to get off ball as a shooter and be like a link-up player, a connector in the half court, are some of the stuff that he does best. So I think there's a case, like you could make a case for Scoot and LaMelo to be a really nice fit, but I don't think you can do it in a way that it would fit better than like a LaMelo Wembanyama 1-5 pairing.
Yeah, that's what I figured. But I wanted to throw out that BPA and see if you could make the case. So just an update here. The Magic did beat the Raptors tonight. I think they also beat them on Friday night. And right now off to the side here. The Rockets are up 4 with 18 seconds left.
Let's go.
If the Rockets do win, that would only place 2 teams at 7 wins, and those are the 2 teams that play Wednesday night.
The Pistons, yeah. Oh, God.
So, it's looking like the Rockets are going to pull this one out. They've got one more free throw attempt here to make it 97-92 if they can convert that. But I'll keep an eye on this.
It's time for Terry Rozier to get does he need some dental work done Wednesday afternoon? Does he need his wisdom teeth taken out or anything like that? Does Kelly Oubre need a day off at the spa? I don't know what it is, but I don't know. Maybe we should schedule one of those for 6:30 Wednesday night. Just throwing that possibility out there.
Yeah, go hang out with LaMelo, who's sick right now. Last question at Captain Regulator on Twitter. Yeah, the Rockets won. Why am I still watching this team? And this is a very, very good question, and I'm not really sure I can convince the masses to watch this team on a nightly basis. I've got to watch because we've got this pod, and I'm very much an on-the-court type of evaluator. Brian and Lee, you could probably be just fine if you just switch your attention over to college, and Spencer could probably pod about hypothetical trade stuff and the salary cap. But I guess my only pitch is that Bryce McGowan's and Kai Jones and get some minutes there and inject some energy into the game. But I do not blame fans whatsoever for, just putting the game on as background music or maybe just watching 3 or 4 games a month. It's tough this year for whatever reason. Lee, Brian, can you make a case to have these people tune in?
No, I mean, yeah, that's the only case is let's see what these young guys are all about. I mean, if you don't want to watch, that's what we're for. We're going to recap it for you anyway. You're going to listen on your morning commute. You're going to get the 10-game update from me. You're going to get some exclusive pods. That's what we're here for. It's funny. I send the 10-game report to some of my buddies, and they say, "Thank God, now I don't have to watch the Hornets. You can just tell me what's going on with them." So
Cliff notes, baby. Cliff notes.
Exactly. It's the old Spark Notes.
Clifford notes.
And the only other answer is that we're gluttons for self-punishment here at the BuzzBeat Pod. So we're gonna keep watching, but there's absolutely no reason why you should.
Yeah, I mean, Lee, you and I did a post-game pod after.
And for the other stars in the NBA, that's to watch Embiid go for 50.
Yeah, that is nice. And even when they're playing a bad team like Detroit, it's I haven't seen Jaden Ivey play all that much since college season started, and my NBA watching has sort of declined. I want to see him, and I want to see Jaden Ivey. I know Cade Cunningham's not playing right now, so I would like to see a game where Jaden Ivey gets a lot of on-ball creation reps. I'm excited to see that. So yeah, that is a big part of it, because once college season starts, I watch all 82 Hornets games every year. And again, it's a good entry point into seeing every team in the league at least a couple of times, so that it helps me in that regard. The other thing is, it's even though the team stinks often, Richie, you and I have been doing this pod. This is his second season, but Richie, you and I have been doing this pod together for 5 or 6 years now. The team has been, they've never been in the playoffs since we started this. They've always been bad. And we just keep doing it, in part because it's still fun. Even when the product is disappointing, I like coming on here and talking about it with you guys, because it's fun to talk basketball with people that also love ball. And so I get some sick enjoyment out of that, I suppose. But it does go beyond that. The community, the people that are still here, the true dead enders, y'all are my people. I've said this to friends of mine before, where they're where they've asked me, why do you follow the Hornets? Who's paying attention? And I'm you might be surprised, but there's at least a couple thousand people out there. It's not a lot, but it's if you're still here at the if you're still here by this point, right? After everything, the team leaving, the Bobcats, everything that's happened, with Kemba, post Kemba, with LaMelo, it's just, if you're still here after all of that, then as the three of us are, and certainly as Spencer is, then I don't know. I'm not gonna just it's tough for me to voluntarily leave that even though I do think ownership of this team, you can still demand better from them, right? While still also saying, but I'm still going to keep showing up and watching these games, So I don't know. It's like I think you can do both, but ultimately, like, it's fun. I like talking with you guys. I like interacting with everyone around the show, whether it's on Twitter or Twitter Spaces, or it's in Discord or Slack or text or whatever. So that to me is fun. And then I do think the other part of it is like, one, watching the young guys, and then it's cool when one of them pops too. Like that's what's made some of this stuff really, really fun, is when all of a sudden you do see a guy turn a corner and you get to be like, man, I watched 2 years of him being bad at this, and then all of a sudden, like, you just see the light go on. That's like a really satisfying process. And then the hope would be that one day they are good, right? Like
and it's all worth it.
And then you can at least say, even when they bomb out in the second round, you can at least be like,
that'd be so fun.
You can at least say, like, I don't know, like, I saw this develop, and there's, I think, some kind of satisfaction, at least in my mind, for that.
We were heading that way too, weren't we?
Yeah, again, we've rehashed it too many times, and I'm sure we will do it more. But man, the 2022 offseason was just, there's just this 2 to 3 week stretch in late July and late June, early July, where just everything went to hell. Like everything fell apart, So, and that's why 6 months later or 5 months later, you're staring down, a Wednesday night game with Detroit, being like, wow, I hope Jaden Ivey goes for 35. So maybe there's some salvation at the end of this, But I don't, like, people who decide to check out on this team, I don't blame you, and you can always come back too. Would be my pitch. Like, you've no one should police how other people want to be fans. I think, at least in terms of like small market NBA franchises.
And here's the thing, Brian, if their Hornets viewing is down, we still hope that they come listen to us for the updates.
Exactly. We're not going to stop.
Yeah.
Look, if Dell, Eric, and Ashley are calling games,
that's right,
we are going to be doing the Buzzbeat podcast. That's my promise to the listeners.
Yeah, we'll be here for the post-game stuff. Then sprinkled in will be some draft stuff with Brian, Lee, and Spencer, and great profile pods on prospects as we kind of gear up for that. So we're going to go ahead and wrap here, but I wanted to put something on your radar. There is a future episode with Lauren Hoffman, likely on Friday the 16th. She was the sideline reporter that filled in for Ashley Shamity for several games with Bally Sports. I'm going to get her thoughts on her time with Charlotte and some other things as well. Thanks again for joining us today. We appreciate the support, and we ask that if you do like our pod, give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to our shows. For Brian and for Lee, I'm Richie. We'll talk to you guys later.
Well, if you're like me and you're wondering what the heck to buy for holiday gifts, consider the Virginia Lottery's Holiday Scratchers or a ticket for Virginia's New Year's Millionaire Raffle. The Holiday Scratchers are beautiful and a lot of fun and are the perfect gifts for the adults in your life. Also, the new year coming up means that it is time for Virginia's New Year's Millionaire Raffle. Raffle tickets are a great gift, but no one would blame you if you kept those tickets hidden somewhere for yourself. If you want to do a little something extra for yourself, I recommend going to VALottery.com. That's VALottery.com and playing the online games when you get a chance. They're perfect for when you're in line at the store or you're waiting for everyone to show up to the party. Whatever your holiday tradition, Virginia Lottery games are fun for all of the adults on your list, including yourself. Lottery games are not for minors. For game odds and information, visit VALottery.com.